thank you. I'm calling this meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. And my little speech just disappeared, so please stand by. The meeting of the WSESU will come to order. This meeting is a hybrid meeting, which means that some or all of the public body is meeting remotely and some are meeting physically in a previously noticed location where the public may attend to observe, listen, and participate contemporaneously. Please note that while we can strive to provide the means for those attending remotely to participate in the public comment period, there may be technical difficulties or reasons that otherwise prevent or interrupt remote public participation. Therefore, it is important to note that the open meeting law only ensures the public's right to participate and comment at a public meeting by attending at the designated physical location as posted in the notice and agenda. If a member of the public or of the public body has technical difficulties accessing this meeting remotely, please alert us by email. In the event of a technical difficulty that cannot be resolved, we may continue the meeting if necessary to time and place certain. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting that are not unanimous will be done by roll call in accordance with the law. Okay, I'm back to somebody in the waiting room. It's Frank. Is that you, honey? Okay, so do we hear a motion to enter consent agenda?
So made.
Thank you, Tim.
Recording in progress.
Okay. Frank, I think you need.
Hey Frank, could you turn the volume down on your laptop?
It's like working on it.
Nailed it.
I would entertain a motion for the approval of minutes of October 11th, 2023.
So made.
Thank you, Tim. Any changes, deletions, corrections?
Nope.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? And the minutes are approved. And moving on to finance.
Okay, we were going to do a very brief budget overview, just similar to what we did in the. I don't need a Zoom there for a moment. Paul, at some point I'll share screen. So for the SD board, we went over a memorandum, and Carrie, could you send that little pile to Tim?
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, thank you. So the memorandum, Carrie, I don't know if you saw that or not, but I'll go over it for the benefit of this meeting. But it is that same planning memo that Mark and I developed, share with the leadership team, and then we had reviewed with the board. This document is intended to give our leadership team guidance around some of the parameters to keep in mind as they're engaging their staff to develop the budget. You see on the first paragraph there, we lead with essentially making sure we're aware and mindful of our mission, which is to provide a safe, stable environment for our students to grow academically, socially, emotionally, while challenging them to reach for their potential as local and global citizens. So, I know every word of that was deliberated over quite a period of time by a lot of folks, and it's very much at the forefront of our budget development. Every word there has a lot of meaning. We had our administrative retreat in August, and it was very much consistent with the board discussion that we had in June around goals. That's the second paragraph, which is essentially reminding our group that we want to make sure that our budget is connected to successful outcomes. So 3 questions we want to make sure everyone's being mindful of. What are the models of success in our schools? And what is that data that quantifies that. What can we replicate and enhance? What kind of staffing will get us to a 10% more proficiency by spring of 2024, as identified in the June board retreat, admin retreat, and how can we sustain that in 25? And that's based on a very significant change in proficiency over the last 4 years, and obviously we're trying to get back to a very high level for all of our kids. And then the third, what systems and layers of instruction best support our desired outcomes? So again, we are trying to be very mindful of systems instead of just anecdotal or individual initiatives. And that will be very much part of this budget deliberation. The balance of the report here, the memorandum, the guidance it does refer to specifics around some of our proficiency statistics that we know need to continue to improve. And then it's obviously encouraging alignment of staff and skill our resources with those needs as we work through what's been a very challenging time across the state and the country, as a result of the pandemic. There's a reference to various legislative acts. Our ed leaders are very familiar with those. Act 127 and the Act 76. Act 72 is another one. The state is being very assertive in trying to improve public ed in Vermont, and those have implications for budget development. So that's part of this. The second page, the reverse side of this memo, is a general outline of some key dates. At the bottom of the document are for the SU board, December 20 would be our target date for a budget approval by this board. March 4 for the Vernon, and March 19 for the Windham Southeast School District annual meeting. And those dates, from a statutory point of view, as you know, drive dates for warnings and budget reviews, and then back to what we just described, planning and engagement with our teachers, our staff, our very broad group of our stakeholders. So that's kind of a brief overview. The other data that I handed out is also, all of these documents are on our website. The middle column here on the timeline is for the SU board. And you see it's very similar in terms of the dates that I just showed you with on the other document. Maybe a little more detail with this, but here we are on the 8th for this overview. On the 29th of November, Mark and I will have the admin instruction and the grant component of the SU budget as a draft for this board to consider. And then on the 6th, special education and then the allocation methods for how costs at the SUs are distributed among the districts. And on the 13th, it's overview of the food service and our revenue sources that fund the SU budget. So, and then the following meeting would be the 20th. And that's very intentional to try to inform the SD and the Vernon board in terms of the assumptions that come from the SU services. So there's an overview. I also did include a some statistics from our special education department at the SU. Given that the SU budget is substantially the special education group, this is an overview, not really intended to get into too much of an analysis of this data here, but it's just to give you a glimpse of the trend in our student enrollments that are on IEPs and then our staffing. Just right off the top there, you see the dramatic increase in the numbers for our students eligible for an individual education plan, in total going from 381 as of last June, right currently at 438 students on site. That's a 15% increase. It's a very significant change. And then you see some staffing statistics there in the middle of the page. And toward the lower third, you see some student-teacher ratio data. So these are all part of the the statistics that we take, of course, into account as we develop the budget. If folks are interested, I would be happy to log in and do a little bit of a refresher on the 4 components of the SU budget. But if you feel familiar enough based on your experience, we'll be diving into that over the next several meetings. So,
By components, you mean special ed, food service,
Exactly.
transportation, central
Yeah.
office, okay.
what I would do is simply log into the website and look at last year's budget proposal more as a refresher in terms of the formats of the reports and a little bit more about the content. But again, if you're familiar with that, we could yield time to our presenters this evening.
How does everybody feel about that? I mean, I'm thinking about the folks at home who might not be as familiar as we are. So maybe you could
Sure.
do it as quick as
A
possible.
brief overview, sure. So Paul and I all set on
Gave you everything for sure.
share screen, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to go to the SU webpage. Yeah, I gotta get it so I can see it too.
Or I can navigate. You can just tell me. You're just gonna go to the website.
I am, but I am there now, so we're all set. But I just wanted to remind folks, what I'm showing you is right here on the website. So it's what we published last year in December. So what you see here on the screen is the summary document for last year's work to approve the current operating budget. As I referred to earlier, we're organized in 4 groups. You see here at the top of our single-page document that represents our $31 million SU budget. We have the administrative, instruction, and transportation component. We have the school age work group and services for special education. Then there's the preschool, and then we have our grant-funded programs. And you see our food service. So of the 31 million, 17 million is special education services, 6 million is the grant programs, which have been recently substantially ESSER funding, but then also Title I, Title II, and some of our smaller grants, many smaller grants that are very, very helpful. Instruction, transportation, administration, you see there of the 31 million is the 5 million, and then food service 2.4 million. So we capture information around those services at the SU. There it is in summary. And this second page which I referred to as, a very specific part of our agenda. It's the board's approval of the methodology in which we use to allocate costs. So several years ago, this really had to evolve as a lot of shifts were happening at the legislative level that required supervisory unions to provide services that were formally provided at the district level. But in the last 3 years, this allocation methodology has been pretty static. So basically for administrative costs, it's our general student census data. So it's proportion of enrollment costs are assigned on those percentages. Special education, there are two types of allocation methodology. The one where we are a union in terms of all of our entities, it's again based on just a general census. But at the secondary level, where Vernon is not a member of the Brattleboro Union High School, we use a allocation methodology. Again, it's just more specific to enrollment at the high school level. And then transportation is basically based on the number of buses and the routes run. So it's a very straightforward allocation. So those are the methodologies. This next page here are the statistics that derive those percentages. So, for example, Vernon in this data set here is 7.4% of total enrollment that is subject to the admin, supportive instruction, and so on. The SD is 93%. So the SD gets 93% of the costs. And so on. So there's more detail around transportation and special education, some of the spending and the revenue assumptions that we will be getting into a lot more detail. Once we go through these kinds of schedules and analyses, then we get into the financial statements. And this is where we have the four groups. For admin and instruction, I'll just quickly mention it includes curriculum and development, curriculum and assessment, technology, our information technology kind of center, our diversity and equity coordinator and the program that supports that. And then it is administration, basically superintendent's office, and then the transportation component for to and from school for all kids throughout the supervisory union. So there's the core content of the admin budget. And I don't want to miss, of course, English language learner. That's also part of this group. That's of that 5,608,000 is for our English language learners, which has been really remarkably busy and effective, particularly since we've become a resettlement community. The next set of data here in the financial statements is the special education proposal, and it is the current operating budget with some history there. And you can see we do organize information by school site. So you can see, for example, on this, the budget for the Academy School, $2.8 million for special education services for this current year. And you see $6.6 million there for the high school, and so on. So that's summary information at the special education SU level. And then for special education, we have, because there is a lot more information, we also have the detail format. So the summary information is about 4 or 5 pages that identifies by site the 17 million that is dedicated to special ed services, and then there's about a 20-page report that breaks it down into the very detailed line items for each school and each element of spending. As we go through that, we then move to the grants. This is the same format as the summary in terms of the sequence of information. And then here we are with the grant proposal. It's the same thing, a relatively detailed report on the spending by each title and so on. Did I get there yet? Not quite. Here we go. Special Revenue Fund. So just as a super quick reference. I don't see the fast scroll bar on this this side where, but here we are into the grants. Paul, feel free to, if you have anything you want to highlight, but this first screen are the revenues. For example, you see Title 1.4 million in revenues, 231,000 in the Title 4, 3 million in the ESSER 3 funding. Many grants. There's probably about 60 different grants that we administer through the SU office. So that's our grant spending, and then our last report here is on food service, and we see that at the very end of the report, starting on page 85, and there it is. As I say, food service, $2.4 million function in terms of funding, and it is again organized by site, so we have a very good idea of the cost to provide the child nutrition program at each one of our buildings, and I think we serve something like 50,000 meals in a year, so there's a lot of activity. There's our overview.
Thank you, Frank.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
I cannot remember where we stand with the bus contract. I know you got us a 1-year extension,
So
but
this is it. Yeah,
so this is it, meaning,
we're in the 1 year, and we can
Okay.
evaluate again, anytime between January and June as to
Okay.
whether we want to do another extension or do we want to go through
Do a
another
full-
bid
okay.
process. Yeah.
If the SU board or the SD board had a significant proposal, $50,000, when and where would we make that? The first internal draft budget is November 1st, 13th. That's internal. What do you mean by internal?
That means we look at what we have
who's
from the
we?
Agency of Ed, which unfortunately still is evolving every day. Most of what we're looking for there is the statistics, the funding formula statistics. We then look at, for example, recently we just got the memorandum that health insurance is scheduled to go up 16%. So we apply general statistics to what we know, in this case, a $31 million budget, and we come up with a kind of a general outlook, so that when we go to the leadership meeting on the 15th, we have a kind of, here's what a very back of the envelope sort of view looks like for budget development. Usually we would have more information than we do now, because Act 127 is going into effect for the first time this year, and in typical fashion, data is not readily available. But that's the nature of the internal draft. As far as a proposal, anytime, typically through the board meeting. And every meeting that we have is a draft review. So as we're discussing budgets and there's a proposal, it's all part of a draft review that the next meeting would incorporate the consensus of the board.
So by December 19th, imagine that's a final date for the board to just give its approval.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't give an approval, the SU does.
The SU board on the 20th, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but anytime between now and the 20th, obviously, if we want to integrate it into a public document, we'd need it, at least a week before.
And in the Finance Committee, are you going to talk in detail about the fiscal cliff and positions that, how we're handling that cliff?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions for Frank right now? Okay. Moving on to payrolls and warrants. I move that we approve the warrants of October 11th, 2023 in the amount of $562,021.30. The payroll of October 6th in the amount of $614,144.87. The warrants of October 25th, 2023 in the amount of $1,070,671.56. And the payroll of October 20th, 2023 in the amount of $620,853.23. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? Thank you very much. And moving on to the administrative report. Take it away, Mark.
Okay, thanks, Sam. Frank, thank you for that overview of the vision around how budgets are developed. And tonight you referenced system development. One of the small systems that we've been working to develop over the past 2.5 years has been the concept of peer observation as a professional development tool within our supervisory union. And the concept is, we have so many talented professionals that what a great opportunity to formalize learning from each other. So we've really started initiating peer observation last year within schools. And the larger goal, I don't know if we'll get to that this year or next year, but the bigger picture goal is that we not only become comfortable with the concept of peer observation cycles within our own school that we work in, but also within our supervisory union. So tonight we have 4 schools who are here with us to share their stories from where they are at this moment in time in this school year. So we have Dummerston School, who presented around peer observation last year as well. They'll be referencing goals that they achieved last year and then goals for this year. Green Street School, Kate Margaitis is joining us online. She'll be having a similar presentation tonight with some statistics around their development. And then at the secondary, we have Hannah Parker here representing UHS and Nancy Weiss representing the Career Center online to talk a bit about goals and plans for this current school year to move forward with a peer observation development. So we have a slideshow and our Dummerston team is going to get us started. So I'll turn it over to Julianne
Great.
To introduce folks.
All right. Well, thank you. Thanks for having us. So I'm here tonight with 4 teachers. I believe Anna Williams is online, our kindergarten teacher. Beth Montgomery is a 1st grade teacher. Katie Tate is 4th grade teacher. And Carmen Winchester is academic support and instructional coach at Dummerston School. And so we're going to talk to you a little bit about one specific model we're using for this group in terms of peer observation. And I can give a little context for that. So as I presented last year, at Dummerston School, we really tried to be intentional last year about getting a peer observation model up and running post-COVID. We had dabbled in it prior to COVID, and then we had the shutdown. And so last year was the year that we really got back into that practice. I think as Mark said, the idea of peer observation is really the idea of embedded professional development. we all have a lot of training amongst our staff. And that's one of the things I love about Dummerston School staff is they are so committed to learning and gaining expertise. And often we don't have time for like this intentional practice with each other. Setting up peer observation in an intentional way allows that to happen, because if you don't set it up intentionally, it doesn't happen. Even when you talk amongst each other, like, yes, I want to see this, unless you really make a commitment, it doesn't happen. So last year was really about making those commitments, thinking about observing outside our grade levels and why we would do that. What value would there be, for example, in a middle school teacher watching pre-K? Like, what are some of the universal concepts related to student engagement that we would see and that we could learn from? And then observing within our grade clusters and similar, subjects. I might teach math 7th grade, and I'll observe a math teacher in 5th grade. And then we just tried to set up, what does it look like to do an observation when you're looking for evidence, right? You're going in and looking for evidence of student engagement, for example, or student talk. What does that look like, sound like, feel like? So we used some faculty meeting time to do that. And then we debrief during faculty meetings as well, using a protocol so that, we would really focus on having the peer observation result in not only like, what did I learn in observing your class, but also, okay, what are my next steps instructionally? So this year we're moving toward really differentiating the process, based on staff feedback last year was, people really wanted to like, let me do this, let me grab this process and really tailor it to what I want to do, what I'm learning and my professional goals. So this year we have an opportunity for staff to make a plan for their peer observation based on what they're working on that particular year. So we'll still debrief during the faculty meeting, and we'll be engaged in helping each other plan. So we have 4 teachers. Part of how they're approaching peer observation this year is to do something called lesson study as a vehicle for learning through co-planning, peer observing, and reflecting. So this group's going to talk a little bit about what that looks like. And so we can go to the next slide.
So we just want to shout out Lily DePino, our former math coach. She was a huge piece of allowing us to be able to do this since I came to Dummerston, I think 5 years ago. Lily and I have talked about trying to get lesson study up and going at Dummerston. She was really passionate about it. And so we just want to give her like a shout out. She also got some funding from the CNA office, I believe, or somewhere, to get us these wonderful books that are helping us through our process. So thank you, Lily. So what is lesson study? So lesson study is a Japanese model of teacher-led research in which a small group of teachers work together to target an identified area for development in their students' learning. So using existing evidence, participants collaboratively research, plan, teach, and observe a series of lessons using ongoing discussion, reflection, and expert input to track and refine their interventions. So really, looking at that, this is one of the 2 infographics I've included for the slideshow. And it just basically lays out the steps with a little bit more detail underneath, is that we study, plan, teach, and reflect. So the lesson study is an approach to instructional improvement, which is all of our goals as educators. And we consider goals for our students and identify gaps between our long-term goals for them and the current reality of where they're at. So the practice of lesson study allows teachers to come together collegially to identify a pressing issue in student learning and examine and research curriculum related to that issue. They collaboratively choose or plan a research lesson to study in advanced instruction. And I just want to point out, like, we're not changing our curriculum, we're using our curriculum. Mm-hmm. But what we're doing is the focus is really on the students. How are the students learning? What are they learning? What are their misconceptions? So what we do is we, as a team, share and discuss the data that we gathered during the lesson, drawing out implications for lesson and unit design for teaching and learning. So our team uses their knowledge and understanding to revise the lesson, reteach and improve it. And you may not reteach it until next year. But the point is you're doing the work and building like a cache of, knowledge and expertise, and that you can also offer for the following year with your lesson study group. I always feel like educators are essentially scientists. We are constantly fine-tuning our craft and our knowledge and our practices. We watch what and how our students are learning, what misconceptions they have, what are our next steps for their growth. And it allows us to do this work together in this process of lesson study to improve instruction, but also to examine its impact. Is what we are doing creating an impact on students? So doing this work together, I feel very privileged to work with the kindergarten teacher, the 4th grade teacher, and the 1st grade teacher. And I think at first, when we started talking about this, I think when we talk about doing teamwork, we think, oh, well, I should be in the primary team, or I should be in the middle school team. But really this work lends itself across the curriculum, across grades, because it's not about specifically what you're teaching. It's about how you're teaching it and how you're collecting the information and the data and what you're going to do with that data. And how are you going to push that data to help you, or how you're going to push that process and intervention to create change in not only your students, but obviously the data as well. So for me personally, as a classroom teacher, this has been the richest form of professional development that I've had the opportunity to collaborate with colleagues. So the next graphic shows really the cycle of the learning. So we study what we know about students, we look at the curriculum, we choose a specific lesson or unit, and because we're sort of launching this year, we've chosen each teacher will teach one lesson in using our illustrative math curriculum. And we figured we would just start with math as like an area to kind of try this out and sort of get wind beneath our wings. Then we meet together, we look at that data, we plan the unit, we detail everything out together as a team. So it's not on the teacher who's teaching it, it's a collective, effective collaboration. And then the teacher, the one team member, which you'll find out is Beth, that started our first round, our first cycle. So she taught the lesson, but because we were involved in planning the lesson and creating the lesson and thinking of all the details, including the materials, where students are going to sit, everything. She teaches, and then we, as her teammates, gather data. By the way, I had COVID, and my colleagues are so awesome. They hooked me up on a computer screen, and I got to talk with students in a small group too. So that's how, we do not let COVID stop us as much as possible.
And those 1st graders thought they won the lottery that day, getting to have the computer with them and talk to them.
And everyone's screaming. I know, I'm going to start. And then after the lesson, we gather the data and we talk about what we noticed, what went well, what misconceptions did we notice, what are students showing us in our work, how do we know that they understood the concept. And these discussions are so rich and layered in so many ways that I think no matter what age or grade that you teach, when you walk away from watching a 1st grade lesson, soon to be a 4th grade lesson, it doesn't matter. There are so many layers of learning for teachers. It also breaks down the walls of isolation for colleagues to truly become a teaching learning community and improve instruction, which is our main goal as educators. So, and then when we reflect, we make our plan, we make a plan for next time to improve our lesson. You might reteach the lesson the next day, you might solidify some understandings, but you just continue the cycle. And this is really what educators do every day, all the time.
Usually
but
alone.
I know, alone in a cave with a candle.
Yes.
No, but
Better to do it together.
Exactly.
So this slide here just kind of goes over what lesson study will look like at Dummerston. And as Carmen said, we've already got the ball rolling. We've started. At the end of last school year, Carmen sent out an email to the staff asking who would be interested in doing something like this. Carmen and Lily met over the summer and kind of came up with this schedule of dates for us. So we, as a lesson study team, met at the beginning of the school year on September 20th for a quick meeting, just to kind of go over dates and decide who was going to teach and who was going to observe on which dates. A week later, we got together and we had decided that Beth would be our first guinea pig to teach. So we sat and we looked at the lesson. We talked about what it would look like, what kind of manipulatives, where the students would be sitting. We laid everything out. And then a week later, we went in and we watched it all happen. And it was amazing. It was an amazing experience to watch, just knowing what was going to happen, and just watching the kids and being aware of what they had already done and what we hoped for them to be able to do, and just being in that moment was amazing. That same day, we met that afternoon and did a debrief to talk about how the lesson went, and then so moving forward, I guess we could see that our Cycle 2 will start at the end of January, and that's when I get the opportunity to teach my fourth graders with all of my lovely colleagues watching and helping me along. I'm very excited about it, and I was very glad that Beth did it first.
I was happy.
So we'll go through the same cycle again. So we'll plan together, I will teach, we will debrief, and then we will do our third cycle in May, and our kindergarten teacher, I believe, will be teaching that lesson, same thing. And then at the end of the year, we'll do our reflection and wrap up.
Which is great. Go to the next slide. So we wanted to include a few of the pieces of data that we collected during the lesson that I taught. So the lesson study happened to fall at the perfect time, I feel, for first grade, because we are moving into a whole new unit of math where students were going to be drawing from their kindergarten experience, working with stories that have mathematical information in it, and was going to allow them to kind of like show us what they had coming into it before we had explicitly talked about how to do things and use strategies and draw models in the classroom. And then through the lesson that we studied and then taught with them, be able to kind of see the growth in just one lesson that many students showed. So you can see the two pictures on the left. Students have a addition story problem where they're being asked to put two quantities together and make meaning of the story and relate their understanding using some kind of model, like a drawing. We encourage them to also use numbers and symbols with that. In kindergarten, they were used to taking two numbers and using maybe a plus sign and a minus sign to like show that they were adding those. In first grade, we're taking that a step further to begin to like build that fluency of switching like from addition to subtraction, and moving also from just counting all of those numbers into being able to be like, oh, I have a group of 2 here and 3, and those are 2 numbers I'm adding together to get that quantity. And you can see just with these couple samples, and we have 2 more after this, how they all thought it was definitely art class because it's story problems. And this was before I kind of break their very young, lovely, artistic hearts and say, it's not art class right now. We're going to learn how to use a different kind of model and use like different shapes and like circles or squares or triangles to represent our groups and make our thinking really clear. So it was really neat to see even the organization and how they changed from the pre-assessment, where we just were seeing what they had, to the post-assessment, which is the one on the right. And you can already see how there is an increase in more symbols and organization and things like that. If we go back one, Paul, it's gotten away, right? Yeah, Carmen actually put together this great little set of graphs here, just kind of showing our exit ticket or our pre-assessment before the lesson. On the far left there, you can see the kids that drew a model. It's kind of cut off a little bit. It's drew a model, but it didn't actually match. And then compared to the number of kids who were able at the beginning to draw a number model and have it be accurate. It was kind of 50-50, like half the class was able to write some kind of expression using actual digits and symbols. Compared to then the post-assessment after the lesson, where you can see so many students drew an accurate model using a drawing, like a shapes or a drawing, and many more students also were able to then also use those symbols and numbers to express their mathematical understanding. And so it just showed a real progression in their additive reasoning, which we want to see grow. And we were able to explicitly take that time to analyze these work samples and kind of chart where kids were on this continuum of understanding their addition and all of the quantities and how to represent that. And so that's a level that we don't always get to do because, it's like, hey, this was just a normal lesson. It wasn't a fancy plan, but we were able to get such depth together, and the expertise of other teachers and academic support and things like that really also helped me see maybe areas where it's kind of like, oh yeah, like tomorrow I want to do this, to like keep this going. And so it was a really, really neat experience for me as the teacher teaching the lesson and working with my students in this cycle. You probably go to the next slide.
There they are.
Yeah, Carmen,
I don't know if Anna's on. Anna, are you on?
I am.
Oh, great.
Yes. It's very interesting to do this via Zoom, by the way, and not be in person. So, Carmen said it, Beth just said it. I mean, it was her lesson, and it was fabulous. And really, the debriefing or the reflection part is really looking at the kids' work before, after the lesson, and then comparing it to the pre-assessment, the before, and it just, just seeing the work, having these conversations, it's really powerful. I personally look forward to going through that process and working with Beth and Kate and Carmen, and having just a richer experience for myself and for the students. And it was it was just really lovely for me to see the students because I had them last year. Mm-hmm. And so I was, during the observation and then seeing their work after was just really, it was just so awesome and powerful. And they just grown. It was just lovely. It was great. So on so many levels, this process is just fabulous. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I just want to say thank you to administration and the Curriculum and Assessment Office for letting us kind of jump and dip our toe in the water.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it.
That's incredible work that you just showed us.
Yeah.
Can we ask questions?
Do you want to ask Deverson specific questions or wait till the end? Deverson specific?
Yeah.
Okay.
First, your enthusiasm over this is fantastic. It's a really great presentation, and you should be enthused because it just makes total sense. My question is, how many of the teachers are engaged in it now?
This is a pilot group for lesson study this year. So so everybody's doing peer observation and making a plan for observation connected to the professional goals. And then this group, they had opted to do this as a way of tackling peer observation plus, a lot of other goals. So,
and we're rolling it out to the staff in December, so that people who didn't, weren't able to sign up for it, we're basically kind of doing a very similar presentation that we just did, and we'll be able to share it with our other staff, and we're hoping that it will fuel some discussion about doing other subgroups in different topics, different areas.
And how many staff members are there at Dumpston?
Certified staff, there's about 29.
29, that's manageable.
Yeah.
So my second question is, after you've done this, I imagine you really wouldn't need a formal evaluation of a teacher. You have a really good sense of how that teacher is doing. So would this supplant a formal evaluation? How does this figure into your formal evaluation schedule?
Yeah, with observation, peer observation, and this kind of work, it doesn't factor into my evaluation. I mean, in the sense that I look, obviously, in my evaluation at, people's work in PD, but I always want people to know when they're engaging in peer observation that it's non-evaluative, right? It's like it's time for learning and not to feel like, oh, this is a time where, these teachers are going to be watching me teach and I'm going to have to do a report and submit it to Julianne and Julianne's going to be like scoring this, rubric. It's really about authentic learning opportunities and peer-to-peer learning. So I wouldn't say a process like this could supplant, evaluation and, the supervision process, because it is important. That's sort of a foundational concept when you think about peer observation, is that it is non-evaluative. And it's similar with coaching. Like we talk about that with coaching so much, that it is something that happens where people can feel vulnerable and say, I need support in this area, or wow, I just learned this new concept. Thanks for sharing. They can, really feel comfortable revealing all of that. So it's.
But when you do a formal evaluation, if a person has done the peer evaluation, it seems like it would be a big plus in your evaluation discussion about what are you doing to improve your teaching.
Sure.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Great job. This is really exciting.
Thank you.
About a year ago, when you first introduced the peer observation thing, I thought this is really a great idea, and it's really exciting to see how it's evolving.
Yeah. And we're still in our infant stages, but it's nice to see the different approaches that is being taken at the different schools. And the more we work at it and share our practices, the more we'll all grow from each other. So I think what we have next is Kate Margaitis representing Green Street School to talk a bit about their process from last year to this year.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. I'm here with Jen Germain. She's a third grade teacher at Green Street. She's been there for 9 years, teaching third grade the entire time. So she is going to help me out with this presentation. And Jen was there prior to COVID when peer observation was intact at Green Street. And then we've had a shift in staffing. So we kind of are reintegrating peer observation into the culture of our school. So are the slides back up, been shared? They went away. I can look, oh, there we go. Also, Dummerston, I'm very impressed. Great presentation. And of course, I would love to talk to you more about that, Julianne, and maybe eventually have your team present at Green Street.
That would be great.
Great idea.
So Jen is going to start us off talking about peer observation at Green Street.
Hi, everyone. I was very excited too. I also have lots of questions. But so when we first started peer observation at Green Street, it was in order to improve our core math instruction and math, to create a predictable routine for all of our students through all the grades, and to have some consistent math language. So we developed a peer observation form, and that's how we rolled it out. And we found so many benefits to it, with so many different learning styles and ways of teaching. We were able to learn from each other, and it really, I didn't just take away anything. I observed it.
Jen, you're dropping out. Can you hear us?
Yeah, so
sounds like
with our mic.
Sounds like your mic went off.
Can you guys hear me now?
That's better.
That's better. Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, let me get back to this. So we found that it not only improved our math instruction, but there were so many different takeaways that also came out of it. We were able to observe transitions and help with different behaviors. And it created time for us to collaborate. We always say, oh, hey, I want to talk to you about this, but this created the time and the space to do that. And then not only talk about it, but to go watch it and learn from each other in that way, which was really impactful. And having so many new programs that we have initiated, having the time and space to be able to go observe colleagues and see the way that they're doing it. I know there's been a few times where I've been kind of stuck on how to implement something or how to actually do it. And I've been able to go to my colleagues and ask them, hey, can I come watch how you do this? And it's been really impactful and a quick, easy way to improve my instruction and not feel like I'm so alone. And we can actually, seeing what's being taught, I think has been most impactful for us. And learning from each other has helped us really come together and grow as a team.
All right, Paul, can you do the next slide, please? Thank you. So last year, with a lot of new staff, we really wanted to introduce peer observation in a way that was supportive to all staff. And we wanted to kind of calibrate the process so that we knew exactly, the way peer observation goes, it should be judgment-free, right? We're just looking at aspects of a lesson, sharing what was seen, and talking about things that people saw or takeaways from that. So we had 4 very brave staff members agree to be recorded doing a lesson. So we had a special educator, a classroom teacher, a PE teacher who was brand new, and a special educator. All do like 10-minute clips. We watched them as a staff, and then in small groups using the peer observation form that we had, we practiced that work. And then we were able to share out as a staff the things that we had seen. And so it really felt good to the staff. The PE teacher who was new was really nervous. But she, after the process, had said, how great it felt, and just getting feedback, whether you're a PE teacher or a grade level teacher, an academic support teacher, it doesn't matter. Anyone can give feedback around instructional practices, and they all have something great that they're doing. And so then we collected some data on the process, which I'll show in a bit, just to see the impact on peer observation on teachers and how it supported their work. And then this year, we're going to hone our focus on literacy, since that is a district goal as well as a school goal at Green Street, with the opportunity for feedback, looking at specific action steps that we've identified as a school to support that 10% increase in proficiency in meeting the benchmarks in literacy. And so this is, Paul, you could click on the observation form if you wanted to make it bigger. And so this is the form that the observer would use. And we're really focusing on this round, it really being what aspect of the lesson they want to focus on and what instructional strategy they want to observe and learn more about. So if I'm going in to see Jen, I might want to see, how she introduces the learning target in a way that all students can understand it. And then I might want to focus on how she's integrating that learning goal into the lesson, and checking for understanding throughout the lesson and what kind of engagement is happening through that learning objective. And so there are a variety of things that folks can observe, and then the observer can identify strategies that they want to use and implement in their practice, and then any follow-up questions they might have, just to kind of elicit discussion around best practices that they saw, and feedback that they might have. So it's not really it's not evaluative. It's more of what they want to use in their practice. because that's really more comfortable for staff right now and just getting to know the process. And then we're looking to see what the next step would be beyond this, but this will be the first round that we do this year. And then you can go to the next slide, Paul. Thank you.
And so some of the great things that have come out of our peer observations is that it's made us feel less alone, that we have people that we can go to and, kind of talk through things or come watch us. I know there's been a few times where I've said, I need some help with this. Can you just come watch how this is going? And that also made me feel less alone. We always get such great feedback, as Kate mentioned. And even there have been times where it hasn't gone so well, and the people observing have been able to help us find the silver linings or the good things that happen in the lessons. So that has also been really helpful. It's increased our comfort level with each other, which has helped us really build the expertise within our building. And it's created a more positive culture where we all feel like we're in this together and we can work together to, push forward and help our kids achieve the goals that we want them to.
And this was some results of data. I put out a quick survey to staff after peer observation, and 100% of the respondents that observed a colleague had one or more takeaways to implement in their own practice, and 100% of the respondents that were observed received feedback that was productive, which is what educators want when, we are going in to watch a lesson, or if somebody's watching us, we want feedback that is going to be useful in our own practice. So that was just clear that this is something that is productive and effective to improve instruction.
Awesome.
Any questions?
Any specific questions for Kate and Jen of Green Street School? Thank you, Kate and Jen. Extremely well done. Very impressive.
Thank you.
So now we're going to shift and looking ahead at this campus, VUHS and WRCC. And maybe we'll start with Hannah to talk about some plans that VUHS has. And I believe Nancy's online as well.
So mine will be the next slide. So we are in literally newborn stages at VUHS. This is never, I don't know if it's never been done, but we definitely didn't do any of this last year. And the goal this year is that in the spring semester, every staff member at the high school will do this with another staff member. We're gonna spend some time on Tuesday, the in-service day in November, to discuss what this is gonna look like, have people pair up, figure out what their goals are. We have a couple parameters, one of which is like, it can't be someone in your content area, because we're so siloed right now, like math, social studies, they all work really well with their departments, but there's not a lot of outreach. And so we're specifically asking them to observe someone that is not in content area. Our hope also is that we're gonna have teachers who have 9 or less years of experience in education matched with somebody with 10 plus years of experience, just to bring some kind of educational pieces with that and experience. I think teachers are very excited about this. I think at the high school level, one thing that the NEASC report shared that we don't fully have yet is the idea that time is something that is very limited with staff at the high school. So we're just gonna get subs and have days set up in the spring where teachers can sign up to do their peer observations and know that their classes are gonna be covered. And yeah, I think it's super exciting. And I think we have incredible teachers in this building, and they have a lot to offer that kind of just get stuck within their own classrooms. And this is a great opportunity for them to kind of see what's happening outside of their 4 walls.
Great. And then we'll go to Nancy, you with us?
Stuff to share.
Sorry, I'm here. Paul, could you go back one slide? I'm really sorry. Took me a minute to unmute. I apologize. So at WRCC, we're using kind of a 3-prong attack this year. So our first goal, we had talked some to the high school leadership council, and they had suggested that they would like to come and visit WRCC and observe in some of our classrooms. And my staff would definitely like to observe in their classrooms. So we have identified, so we are working to identify some days where we can get substitute teachers so that BUHS students who would like to come, BUHS teachers who would like to come and observe at WRCC will be able to sign up to do an observation, and we, WRCC, will supply the substitute for their classroom. We have, and then in turn in the spring, we are hoping to observe in BUHS classrooms, and I will supply subs for my teachers those days so that they can do that. As well, my staff is observing each other, which is complicated because they all teach at the same time or within the same time frame. So we are using our internal staff to substitute. So there are days that I will be subbing so that somebody can go and observe somebody else teaching, as well as a couple of other staff members who are doing the same thing. And then finally, we have a system set up with our tech center partners. So there are 17 tech centers within the state. All new tech teachers who are becoming licensed in technical education have to do observations at other schools. And by using a partner, so somebody else who, if you're a culinary teacher, somebody else who teaches culinary. Today, the student from the teacher from industrial trades in Springfield came and observed our electrical teacher, which is a really good example. And then they were able to give each other feedback. They were able to talk about what happens in their 2 separate classrooms and ways that teaching might improve for both of them. And so that is a really nice exchange. I have 6 teachers who are on the roster to be observed by anybody in the state, any CTE teacher in the state who would like to observe. So we are focusing on the areas of student-centered classrooms, student engagement and student voice, managing behaviors and routines and procedures. Because we are not going into classrooms where they're often not going into classrooms where they're teaching like curriculum. So that's where we're at WRCC.
Thank you, Nancy. Very exciting. Any questions from the board or the community for any of our presenters tonight?
Yeah. So students at the Career Center level, the middle school level, and the high school have very strong thoughts, many of them do, on teaching, effective teaching strategies. What mechanisms exist now for the teachers to hear from the students about how they're doing?
I think just feedback. I think if students come to us with questions, concerns, we strive to have them have those conversations with teachers, and if they don't feel comfortable, we offer to be there with them also. Teachers, I think, are very open to having dialogue with students, and oftentimes students will reach out and ask them if they can have a conversation before or after class or during ACE, and teachers are very open to setting up those times.
So it's informal, there's no formal mechanism or structure.
For students to provide feedback for
Right.
teachers. I think it's it's not a requirement that teachers offer like surveys to students, but we do have a lot of teachers that do survey students at like
They
the
do.
middle and the end of the semester to see how their teaching style is working for the class.
Yeah, as you know, I remember getting those myself, and they're just priceless.
Yeah.
They're so invaluable. But the problem is that only the confident, good teachers are the ones that typically do it.
Yeah. And we hired a teacher last year actually who brought in samples of kind of the feedback that they received from students that they had done that for in the past. But I think it's a very good point and something we can definitely bring up as strongly encouraged to do.
Thanks, Hannah.
Yeah.
My second question is, how come you have 2 name tags?
Because I accidentally took mine last time because I think I was the last one left in here and nobody collected it. So it was in my bag and I brought it and apparently there was a second one. They had 2 of them. So
I've just been nagging me that question.
I just wasn't sure if people thought they saw a double or.
Tim, at the Career Center, we survey students every year as part of our comprehensive local needs assessment. And then we also do a survey that we started last year on student sense of belonging at the Career Center. So those are 2 really important aspects for us.
Oh, thank you, Nancy.
No problem.
Great question. Any other questions from board or community?
I would just ask, what's next?
What
happens in 6 months? Like, what's your big goal?
Yeah.
What's your hopefully?
Continuous development and building the system of peer observation, knowing that every school's on its own pace, and also, as you can see from tonight, has taken, different approaches, and that's okay. There are different models of success for peer observation, for co-teaching. But every school is on the path and has embraced an interest and a commitment to doing this type of work. And I think the big picture, ideally, is we get to a place where it's very routine opportunity to conduct peer observation within your school walls, but also it becomes more of a norm where we're making connections from school to school within the school system. So we're not there yet. We may be in some instances, but grand scheme, big picture, umbrella view is this becomes a norm of our school system. Julianne talked about homegrown professional development. There's a lot to learn from each other, and when we tear down those silos and work on developing norms and best practice and putting in the time to create environments that people are comfortable doing the work, we're only going to be more and more enriched. So I don't know what the time frame is, Carrie, where I don't think you're ever at that.
Yeah, no, you got to
solved it.
Yeah.
But I think in a year or 2 from now, being more consistent and visiting cross grades, cross schools would be a huge goal for us.
It's so exciting.
2 thoughts on this. We know that when families think highly of a school, their students, their kids do better in that school.
Yeah.
How are we communicating this to families? One question. Second question, if somebody looking for a job, this would be appealing to that kind of person. So how is Mike getting the word? Does Mike get the word out to prospective teachers that this is one of the benefits of working here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it flows all in with the concept of grow your own. It's building from within, putting our people up, giving them opportunities to grow within our system. So I think there's a lot of room to do that work with peer observation. And I think in terms of communicating with families, that's why we put it on the schedule for presentations at board meetings. We now do have a school district or supervisory union newsletter. So next one will be going out in December. And those are, again, opportunities to really highlight initiatives and work that's taking place. And that newsletter has legs. When that goes out, it hits about 4,500 people right into their inbox. So just, again, it's all about system development, and there's still plenty of room to grow it and to celebrate it and to communicate it and to market it in the community. But I love your questions. It's super relevant to moving forward.
Thanks.
This is continuous improvement.
Yeah.
This is what we keep talking about. This is what we want. Thank you. And I really did appreciate the enthusiasm that I saw with your staff here.
Yeah.
I hope everybody catches that.
Yes, thank you.
Seriously.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, we appreciate the opportunity to be able to showcase it, so thank you.
Okay, I guess we're moving on, and I am here to ask for public comment on non-agenda items. Anybody? Okay, going once, going twice. Well, unsold, I suppose. Moving on to unfinished business. We have two policies presented for adoption and readoption, which are F10, reporting suspected child abuse or neglect, and H7, leadership councils. Do I hear a motion to approve those new policies, which the SD board has already adopted?
So moved.
Kelly? Okay. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. 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 Any opposed or abstentions? Thank you. The new policies, well, the old policies rewritten, are adopted and readopted. The only update I have on the VSBA Superintendent evaluation is that it has been done and is off with the VSBA, and they are analyzing it. And I believe they expect to have a report for us in December.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was hoping that.
Okay. Mark, do you have any new hires or?
I do not.
Okay. And presented for a first reading, we have E10, School Crisis Prevention and Response, E15, Security Cameras, F9, Student Substance Abuse Prevention. They're just presented for a first reading. I'm sure that we have all read them. And if there is any further discussion, well, okay, and we are on to other business, and I'm going to actually give this to Tim because he had a number of suggestions, and we're just here to talk about.
Get my links.
I did get your links.
Okay.
Yes.
If you can click on the first one, yeah. This is, oh, can you?
Hang on, yes, I can.
This is not a proposal, it's just an idea that I really would like to float by folks. So the Cambridge public school system, obviously, it's urban versus rural, and when you compare them to Brattleboro and surrounding towns, it's incredibly diverse. Only 55% of their students are white. It's a very different place. Nevertheless, I think we can always learn from other models of the way people do things. So when I went to their, oh no, could you go back to the first link? Or that page?
This page?
That page.
Careers teach.
This page.
School careers.
Just the home page. No, the home page.
Oh, home is here.
Yeah. Oh, it's not showing up there.
Well, let me get your other links. No, not that one.
Huh.
Sorry, this is not something I usually do.
Sorry.
That's okay.
That page.
Here's this one.
It's not showing up there.
And were you talking?
It's not on the big screen.
Okay, wait, on ones.
Sorry.
No, I am sorry because I completely lost this. I've lost my screen sharing controls.
Oh, no.
I can't find them. I can't even find my Zoom.
Well, I'll
There it is.
Cursor, there's,
There, is that, this is the one you were
that's
interested
your
in?
cursor there.
Yeah.
Can you click on that where you are?
This,
There you go. Is that what you wanted?
this is teacher contract, these are things that Tim sent you. that
Oh, okay, right here.
Click directly on
Right here.
from what he sent me.
My kids went through the Cambridge school system, so I know a lot of folks there. The first thing that strikes me about their homepage, their webpage, is are the links at the very top: students, families, teachers, and staff, careers at CPS, and the parent square. Our homepage, our webpage, which is continually evolving, is for everybody. It's not specific to those main stakeholders. So if you know, in your own free time, if you want to explore this webpage, you'll see how easy it is to for students to click on that student link and get information that's relevant to them. The great presentations we just had tonight would go under teachers and staff. So rather than, a newsletter every month or two is great, but this is real-time. Teachers, families, staff, students use this all the time. It's just a way of structuring the webpage, which I think is terrific, because it focuses attention on the interest of different stakeholders. Their emphasis was on improving, recently in the last 2 years, was improving family engagement. So they added that parent square. Can you?
Is families here?
Right there.
Parents are over there.
Yeah.
You got it.
So the parent square has, how to choose your preferred language. They have this translated in Amharic, Chinese, Spanish. Well, that's Cambridge. But it's just really a great way to engage families, which is one of their district goals. And earlier, if you go to the school site that you had earlier, we've been talking about continuous improvement plan.
This one?
Yeah, there. So this is one school, Amigo School. So they have the vision, they have the theory of action, they have student SIP, a student information plan. What is that? SIP? I believe
Improvement
it's
plan?
School improvement plan?
Of course, school improvement plan. They have the objectives, and then they have the initiatives, and I think there's an action plan.
Oh,
Oh no,
there it is.
Action plans. So this is just a model for a continuous improvement plan for one school. They've been at it for a few years, but I think it's always good to look at how we can evolve. So my big question is, I know, Paul, you're in charge of the webpage. You have so much time. this is a question for you, would it be worth the district, with the objective of furthering family and student engagement in a webpage, to hire a consultant to develop something like this?
Sure. I mean, we put enough money toward it and we can create what we want. How big is Cambridge Public Schools?
Yeah, it's big.
Huge.
Yeah.
with a massive budget.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of like, sure, we can do that, but we're kind of, relative to Cambridge Public Schools, we're pretty small potatoes.
No, and this gets to, Cambridge is big, they have money. But when I was at a school in Albany, which is another city, the school hired a consultant for the nursing program who redid their nursing webpage. They have 35,000 nursing students who study online. And it cost about $40,000. So the question is, do we have the money? Well, that is the question. Do we value improving our website enough to spend? I tried to find out how much it would be, and the range is everything from $5,000 to $70,000. It just, there's so many factors that determine it. So the question is, for the SU to consider, would it be worth it to explore investing in developing our website to something that is much more easily navigable and applicable to the interests of different groups? We can always say, well, that would be great to have, but we don't have the money. But this is where, a budget being the reconciliation of values and resources. Do we want to spend the resources to develop? Would it be worth it?
Can I offer an alternative? Given that we just did this website, is it just the tabs that are the issue instead of it being, like, I look across and I go, schools, oh, yay, drop down, I see the schools, okay, I got it. Services, okay. There is a parent community resources line item there, but perhaps it's not as clearly stakeholder divided as you would like it. So maybe it's not a whole new website, it's just okay, we did this with schools, services, school boards, curriculum. Maybe it's a slight tweak so that it is a little more stakeholder like that.
Well, yeah, my hunch is that our students don't visit our website.
My hunch is our students will never visit our website.
I think that's the
I mean, I guess I'm just thinking of my kids, like they would be like, why? They have something on their phone that's already bookmarked to tell them what days they have off. That's
one of the buttons on the student page there is bullying. And they have a really nice piece about bullying and steps that you can do if you feel that you're being bullied. So it's a question, it's not a proposal, it's just a question. Is there value in investing a sizable amount of money in the hopes that families and students and staff, teaching staff, would engage more in our families engage in this because they have to, because all the forms they need for everything is easily found on that. I mean, they don't use paper. It's you want to do anything, you go to the web. Families know, go to the web page.
And Tim, just so you know, all the high school forms are all on Power School, so that's how parents access all high school forms.
Okay. I didn't know that.
So that's already happening that way. We actually moved this summer to fully being online. We had some paper forms still, but we went fully online this year. And there was a little bit of trouble with it, so we did end up having to send out health forms. We didn't get those back from a lot of families, but that's kind of how parents
It was so
Get most
awesome
of-
this year.
yeah.
Or it was much better than the kids coming home with
Yes,
3
with a
inches
packet
of
of-
paper
yes.
going, Mom, you've got to fill this out tonight. And I'm going,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess, Tim, I would just say the website, just like anything, is a continuous work in progress. It's not a final product. It's hard for me to respond to this website just, looking at it in 5 minutes right now. I'd be happy to dig a little deeper, but but we're actively adding presentations to the website. The one you received tonight will be on the website tomorrow morning when the link is shared with Mo. To be fair, I think we've made a lot of progress from 2 years ago where we were in terms of our website. So certainly it should be a goal to continue to evaluate it and to make it more user friendly. So
Yeah, well, a main question is when you look at a website, who's it intended for? And if you think that students will never use it, you'll never get to a specific pages for students. But I think that there's benefit in having, for example, we have, you're absolutely right about our website continually evolving.
Yeah.
We've all seen the improvements. The board report, the reports to, what is that new addition we have? Reports to the board?
Reports to the board, yeah.
Yeah, if families wouldn't have any incentive, I think, to go there, unless they wanted to specifically knew that something was presented at a board meeting.
Right.
How many parents are involved in this meeting? So it's just an idea that I thought I would throw out there. I was also looking at our school community relations policy, H1, and to really get at what this policy is trying to achieve, we need to try different things.
And Tim, I will share that Monday night at the parent-teacher conferences, they did a new workshop program for parents, and there were multiple workshops run by different staff members in the building, and it was very well attended. People loved it, and all the documents from that workshop just went out via email to all parents.
Oh, well.
We're hoping to do it again.
Well, great.
With a survey.
Yeah.
And behind the scenes, we're exploring different avenues. Michael Kelleher and myself 2 weeks ago met with a marketing agency. There was no commitment of cost to that meeting. It was an initial meeting to see what we could do and what it would cost. But so there are things happening, but it doesn't, translate overnight into the plan.
I think another element, I like to peruse different websites like you were doing there with Cambridge School. And it's always great to see ideas that are out there. One thing that's unique to Vermont, it's not a reason not to try to innovate and continue to communicate better with the public, is that supervisory unions are very unique to Vermont. And obviously our website is structured around the governance kind of requirements that the agency of ed and the legislature have created. It's very much to meet the statutory requirements of public policy, availability, board meeting minutes, agendas, and everything that goes with what's required of a school board in Vermont to make publicly available, budgets and so on. But obviously, I'm sure you've gone to our individual school websites. That's what's so different. In Vermont, we are governed through a supervisory union structure. When I do business with all kinds of vendors, they don't understand, well, what's a supervisory union? How come if I'm trying to build a building for Brattleboro Union High School, I'm dealing with 53 Green Street? What's with that? And it is an unusual structure in the state, and there's no way around it. It complicates our ability to communicate with the public. But my point is that I think we've evolved a long way with the way in which we used to engage the public as required, through this last web revision that Paul led, What we really haven't done that I'm aware of is what you're getting at, which is, okay, now let's get to the school district level. Like, was it Cambridge School? That's a school district. Like Brattleboro Union High School or Windham Southeast School District. We don't have that sort of orientation at the SU level. That wasn't our charge, that wasn't the scope of work. The scope of work was, let's become compliant with statute. Let's represent, Windham Southeast Supervisory Union. But when you look at the various school websites, you do get to very much those sort of resources. I just clicked on BUHS. I'm sure you have too. You know that you can get into the academics, you can get into the athletic program, you can get into the calendar, you can get into all kinds of stuff that are not on our Windham Southeast Supervisory Union website. So it's just another element.
Yeah, the school CIP are obviously much more developed than ours. The school that we saw, with the vision, the objectives, the action steps and all, our schools don't have that. BAMS has, pretty well developed, but most of the schools, from what I've seen in the continuous improvement plan, have the goals, but that's it.
Schools are not, have you looked at the school-wide plans?
School-wide plans, yeah.
There are action steps in the school-wide plan.
Oh, I didn't see that.
A lot of that is driven by the state education department. And, again, Vermont is notorious for really underfunding the Vermont Department of Education. When you talk to our local legislators, but when you go to Massachusetts and you look at the Education Reform Act and the extent to which the state agency helps develop those sort of tools, and then again helps with the interface, the public interface and so on. It is so different.
Yeah. And if you were part of the policy discussion yesterday, we were reminded about how complex the SUSD business is. We still haven't resolved. How
it's a challenge, but no reason not to do what you're suggesting, which is continue to improve it. But we cannot ignore the fact that the law requires us to represent the administrative unit. It's a legal entity. It's a separate entity. It is unusual. It's unusual to employ $30 million worth of resources in an agency that is not the school that the people are actually serving in. That is odd.
So I'll wait until next year to make a motion to spend $70,000 on improving our website.
Well, the real cost, as you know, is in maintaining it. The initial cost is not significant over the life, but the challenge is in a small system like ours, how do you maintain that investment? But it's absolutely vital.
What grade do students and families start having access to PowerSchool?
That's a great question. It depends on the school.
That's what I thought, but so, middle school students from Dummerston and Putney.
Dummerston does not.
But
I only know as a
Putney
parent. I don't know.
They did.
Yeah.
I don't know if they still do, but they did.
And BAMS does.
Yeah, I feel like BAMS was when I got into it.
But, so a third grader in Dummerston, third grader's parents in Dummerston don't have access to the information on PowerSchool that might be useful to families as far as I know.
Well, I think it depends, like if Dummerston isn't using it as a tool for sharing information with families, then it's irrelevant. Because, they also don't share it with 8th grade families. So they have like weekly newsletters they send out and stuff like that.
Not picking on Dummerston,
Yeah. No, but I feel like for me, I will always go to the BUHS website, as I would always go to the Vernon website when my kids were in Vernon. My first thought would be go to the Vernon website. Oh, look, there's the lunch menu for the week. Oh, there's the immediate click on here's the schedule. And that's where my kids, they literally have it on their phones of when's our next half day, when's our next day off. They go to the BUHS website. That's their point of contact.
Just wondering.
Yeah.
Something to think about.
And I know that at least I know on the Vernon website, you can go to the Vernon School website and you can click into the WSESU website. Like it's right there. And I'm like, why? And I'm like, doesn't matter. It's good that it is there. It's good that it's Vernon understands its connection to the SU and you can go directly from Vernon to the full SU website. So
And
I'm like,
vice versa.
and right, yeah. I'm like, okay, that works. If you're a Vernon parent, you don't know about the SU website, but you go to your first point of contact of the Vernon School website, you're going to easily find this thing, WSESU. And so good, maybe we need to do more of that. If there is more to do, there might not be.
There's always work to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I surf the web and look at different school districts all the time. I go down that rabbit hole.
I find myself on other websites going, how could this be applied to school? And oh, look how easy and nice that is behind this.
So check out Cambridge because all those the bullying stuff I love.
The what stuff?
Well, not just bullying. You know,
Oh,
for
bullying,
example,
gotcha.
not surprising, they did panorama. They do climate surveys with panorama. And each school has what we learned, what we can improve, what we are doing well in from the climate surveys and the teacher surveys and the family surveys. So it's very sophisticated and translated.
And I will send everybody the links that Tim sent me that will lead you to those pages.
Oh, they don't have to, they can just.
No, it's true, they could just Google that.
Yeah.
Well, I've got one of them in here for the minutes. Okay. I got the Cambridge one. in here.
Okay, thank you for your time and considering that.
And you had one more thing.
Oh, there's the staff involvement in the superintendent evaluation. Obviously, that didn't work out this year. The thing that you got back from Jay Nichols was really for superintendents evaluating principals. But I just think that it would be valuable for staff, for the district for the staff to develop this, 5 or 10 questions that they could use to evaluate the superintendent, which would be valuable for them to feel involved in the process. And just for the information, when we filled out that very long survey, there were a few questions that were specifically for staff that I couldn't answer because they're staff questions. So staff, should be involved. They're impacted by the leadership and the district leadership too. So I just think that next year it would be good for us to develop a survey form with space for comments for staff to evaluate the superintendent. But what do you think?
The only thing I'll say as somebody who works with a lot of staff with this kind of stuff is that if you're giving them time to do it, then you're going to get outcome. But if you're not, then there's going to be very little response.
Even the 5-item online survey that they had 2 weeks to complete, it would take 5 to 10 minutes for them to do.
Possibly. I mean, time is like incredibly short for teachers right now, and surveys I've sent out have had very little response unless I say bring your Chromebook to staff meeting or your laptop, and then we give them time during a staff meeting, and then it's great responses. But
well, you don't want to impose on them. I just thought
no, yeah,
staff would want to do it.
Yeah, no, and they might. I mean, I think feedback's important.
Okay, that's all.
Okay. Is there anything else?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Carrie.
There being no further business before this board, I move we adjourn.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? And we are adjourned at 7:45. Thank you all very much, everybody.